So this is going to be a pretty different video for my channel, but I think it's an important conversation that needs to get started in many different places. So I'm going to try and start it here. A couple of days ago, actually that's not true, like one day ago, I posted this picture on Twitter, and this was found from Reddit, which was found on TikTok. And in the video in question, there is a young girl, and she is literally shedding actual tears from her face because her family, her parents presumably, purchased her an Android, a Samsung device, instead of an iPhone. And of course, my initial reaction to this was kind of multifaceted. My first reaction was that I laughed because this just seems so absolutely absurd to me. There's so many layers to this, but in those layers, there's so much more going on here. I think that it's important that this stuff gets talked about. So first off, I'm not going to be bashing this child for for obvious reasons. It's not what this is going to be at all. We're going to try to understand what's going on here a little bit and try to have an actual conversation around it instead of just pointing, laughing, making fun of, so forth and so on. So my initial thought here of laughing is because it just seems absurd to me. This may be a generational thing, and I know that most of you probably don't look at me and think that I'm very old, but I am 32, and this person's probably half my age. When I was 16, I had just gotten a phone, period, and it was a dumb phone. It was just a phone. It was like a texting phone with like a little keyboard, but it was just a little phone, cheap. You couldn't browse the internet on it, anything like that, right? So shortly after getting a full-time job, one of the first things I did is I got my own cell phone plan, got off my mom's plan, and I bought my own phone because I wanted data and I wanted a smartphone. So I went and bought myself a Palm Pre, and I was happy with it. However, when my mom gave me at 16 or whatever it was, something like that, that dumb phone, I wasn't upset about it. It didn't mean anything to me in that regard. It was a way that when I was out and about, I could communicate with people, and that was something I was happy to have. But that's an entirely different framework, an entirely different world than where, the world that this young lady is now living in, where phones are status symbols and they're far more meaningful, right? When I was 16, if I pulled out my little crappy dumb phone, no one at that point was going to look at me and be like, that phone's a piece of crap. You're a loser. Like, nobody cared, right? Like, the coolest one you could have was the Motorola Razr at that point. Probably a little after that, but whatever. You take my point. And even that was like not a big deal. But to girls like this, and maybe I shouldn't say girls, to people like this, to people in a certain age group in particular, but also outside of this age group, your iPhone is a status symbol. I would say that it is an objective truth that the iPhone is not wildly better than the top Android phone, right? Now, my preference is against Apple and against iOS, but that's just a preference, and I accept that that's a preference. And I also accept that Apple and iOS iPhones are very, very good phones, right? If I suddenly was forced to use an iPhone 13, I would be able to get by. I would have to learn, and then I would be like, yeah, it's a great phone. Battery's great. The camera's great. It's fine. It's a great phone. I would argue that a majority, potentially, a large percentage minimum of people that buy the iPhone buy it because to them it's the only option. They've never tried Android before. They don't know. I've used iOS devices many years ago. I had an iPod Touch and I played around with it. I jailbroke it. I did all these things and it was fine, but I preferred Android because it was just more in line with what I wanted to do. I'm a tinkerer. Most iPhone users have never used an Android device. Or if they have, it was years ago when Android was still pretty not great. They went to iPhone and now they're just locked into the iPhone ecosystem, which is a totally reasonable and fair thing to happen. A lot of these people that, now they have kids and then they get kids' iPhones and it perpetuates the ecosystem lock-in, which adds to the things I'm talking about here. But for a lot of people, it's because it's a status symbol. They want to be seen with an iPhone, and that's a powerful thing. right? We've talked before about, the green dot or the blue dot. I don't remember which one's which, but one of them means you're on iMessage and one of them means that you're not on iMessage. And I've tweeted out pictures before of people threatening to break up with their significant other because they had a green dot or whatever. They had the wrong colored dot. And that was like, they felt like they were like a loser because they didn't have an iPhone. Now, obviously, this is not reflective of reality. This idea that Android devices are cheap, right? This is a $1,500 device. That was almost a $2,000 device, or maybe it was like 18 or something like that when it first came out. Android devices are, in fact, more premium. You can buy more premium Android devices than you can iOS devices. This is not reflective of reality, but the people that are like this don't know that. They have no idea because all they know is that Apple is what celebrities use, right? It's the cool thing to use. Every celebrity you see, every famous person, period, they've got an iPhone. And again, it's not because iPhones are objectively better than Android devices. That's not the case. And you could say, well, they've all subjectively got a preference for iOS and its design. I don't think that's right. I don't think that's possible, that every celebrity just has a subjective preference towards the way iOS works. No, I think that most of them use iOS and use Apple because there's a particular look, aesthetic, there's a certain expectation, there's an appearance all around using Apple devices. They're chic, they're cool. So that's what people largely want to use. And that's a really powerful thing. And when we're talking about peer pressure, when you're a young person, right, and you're trying to find out what tribe you're going to fall into, having your tribe basically mock you, isolate you, call you out because you have the wrong phone, that would be very anxiety inducing. And people, again, I laughed when I saw this crying face because of an Android phone, because I think that it's so silly. But on the other hand, to her, it's not silly. To her, she's going to be made fun of because she has the wrong phone. And what I'm really trying to hammer home here are two things. First off, this tribal preference towards iPhone is not based on what phone is objectively better as best you could measure something like that. It's based on appearance. It's based on herd mentality. And I'm not going to call Apple people sheep because iPhones are really good, but I'm just saying that some people, probably a lot of people, buy an iPhone for kind of sheepy reasons. There are good reasons to buy an iPhone, right? Like, trust me, if my mom was like, "Hey Shane, what phone should I buy?" I'd be like, "Get the new iPhone. It's going to be the simplest thing for you to use. You're already used to it. That's what everyone else in the family uses. Great camera, great battery, great performance." But in reality, most people don't actually care about any of that. In reality, most people buy the iPhone for bad reasons. They buy a good phone for bad reasons. So that's point number one. And point number two is that this sort of tribal behavior, the us versus them, in group, out group, is stuff that is as old as humanity, probably even older than humanity. And it's not going away anytime soon. I was talking to someone earlier today who was complaining that they were a big Call of Duty player. Now they're playing the new Halo, and they've got friends that don't want to play Halo because they're Call of Duty people. And that's ridiculous. That's absolutely absurd. You can play both games. You can appreciate iOS and Android. But the reason that people don't do this is it's deep in our lizard brain. If you can imagine, take a pack of wolves and then take one wolf out, isolate them by themselves out on their own, and tell me how well they're going to survive. That's going to be hard for a pack animal to survive. We are pack animals. So feeling isolated is sufficiently anxiety inducing. We don't want to do it. So when anything happens that separates us, that puts that strobe light on our head that says, we're different, that's going to freak people out. And when all the people around you use an iPhone, all the people around you have bought a good phone for bad reasons, and your mom hands you that Android device, as crazy as it is to me, someone who grew up relatively poor, who was given a cheap, kind of garbagey phone to just get by and was fine with it. Again, different times, different circumstances. That sounds crazy, but we need to have some empathy and some compassion. We need to try to understand each other a little bit better in these instances. So I'd love to know what you guys think about all this down below. If you're an iPhone user, hopefully you didn't take any offense to what I said. Perhaps you bought your iPhone for good reasons, because as I've mentioned, there are great reasons to buy an iPhone. So I'm not saying iPhone, Apple people are sheep. I'm not saying Android people are sheep. I'm saying people do things for a multitude of different reasons. Some of them are good reasons, some of them are bad reasons, and we should try to be more understanding of each other. But at any rate, let me know what you guys think about this in the comments down below. Thanks for making it to the end of this kind of strange video. Stay tuned for more fascinating content just like this. And until next time, stay nerdy, my friends.